The Little Stine theory is about the Stine family's involvement in JonBenet's death and cover-up. And little Doug was Burke's best friend. And so this video speculates a little bit about his possible involvement in the case. Susan Stine graduated from Northville High School in 1967. Here's her class picture, and like a revolving door, she never shuts up. Glenn Stine graduated from Michigan State University in 1970. That's the same college that John Ramsey graduated 4 years earlier, and where John Ramsey went back and earned his master's degree. Susan graduated from Michigan State University in 1971, and that's where she met Glenn, and they married on August 28, 1971. And Glenn Stine's family was from Kalamazoo. I just wanted to say Kalamazoo, Michigan. Now, little Doug Stine, he was born years later, February 22nd, 1987. And here's a picture of him on a horse in the snow and at the beach. Now, prior to living in Boulder, the Stines lived in Pennsylvania, and Glenn Stine worked for the University of Pennsylvania. And then in 1990, they moved, and Glenn Stine got a job at the University of Colorado. Not only was Santa Claus at the Ramsey's Christmas party, but Susan and Doug Stine were there also. And Susan Stine helped make the gingerbread houses, or helped assist the children making their gingerbread houses. Now, Susan Stine was the one who refused to open the door for the police. They were there to check on the 911 hang-up call that night. And she apparently told them that somebody misdialed 911 and everything was okay and nothing was wrong. Now, on the top of your screen is an article from the Washington Post that talks about the 911 hang-up call and that it was made by a drunken guest. And then on the bottom of the screen is the same account from John Ramsey's book, Death of Innocence. And it doesn't say anything about a drunken guest. It just says that Fleet White misdialed, trying to call his mother, and how Susan Stine spoke to the police. Now, on Christmas night, the Ramsey family stopped by the Stine house to drop off a gift for them. And Susan Stine said, "They came to our house and I talked to Patsy for a while, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and they all seemed perfectly normal. They were all the same, bubbly about Christmas and about where they were going. And we, my husband and I, waved goodbye to them as they were leaving, and that was the last time we saw them as an intact family." What's interesting here is Susan says nothing about JonBenet asleep in the car. It even seems to imply that JonBenet was up, wide awake. And there's not enough time really for JonBenet to fall asleep in the car from the Stine's house to her house. Now, did Doug, Burke's best friend, asked to go over to Ramsey's house that night to spend the night on Christmas? Or was it already prearranged for Doug to go on the flight to Michigan? And this is what might have happened that night. When the Ramseys got home, John Ramsey went to bed. The kids were told to get in their pajamas, and then sometime Patsy went to bed. And then Burke got out the pineapple and his glass of tea. And then the boys played in the basement, Boy Scouts, with Burke's Swiss Army knife and the white nylon cord. At some time the boys got too rough and injured JonBenet, and she screamed, and then she was hit on the head with possibly Burke's baseball bat or one of the golf clubs, and then she was strangled with the nylon cord. And then at some point Patsy maybe heard the scream and went downstairs and found JonBenet, and all hell broke loose. And then Doug Stine's parents were called, and one of them came over and picked up Doug Stine and took him home. And then they worked on how to cover up the crime. We also know that there were high-tech boot prints on the floor in the wine cellar. And the police discovered for some time that the footprint found near the body of the 6-year-old girl actually belonged to her brother Burke. And we know that Burke's red Boy Scout Swiss Army knife was found in the wine cellar also. And it looks like the white nylon cord was cut with that Swiss Army knife. And we know from the police that a Webster dictionary was open to the word incest, and so possibly Patsy looked this up regarding Burke and JonBenet. And we've all seen the picture of Burke smiling while he's leaving JonBenet's memorial service in Boulder there. And in his interviews, he didn't show any concern for his safety, like an intruder might get him. And Burke's parents didn't seem to be too concerned. Burke Ramsey had returned to classes without a police escort a few weeks after a small foreign faction killed his sister. Burke's good friend Doug raised an immediate objection. Since he knew Burke didn't want any special attention, Burke doesn't want any presents, he told his classmates. He doesn't want it to be any different. If you were nice to him before, just go on being nice now. When John and I descended on the Stines' home in mid-February, we inadvertently began a period that probably saved our sanity. Our lives had become so chaotic and shrouded in grief, we couldn't help feel that the whole world had turned against us. Why that happened, we will never be sure. Our child was murdered, and now the world hated us. Nathan, a young CU college student, already lived with the Stines and helped take care of their son Doug after school, since both Susan and Glenn worked at the university. By the time we moved in, though, Susan had retired from her position as director of planning to do some consulting work and have some more free time. Her free time soon turned into a full-time job as house mother, nursemaid, and in general, Florence Nightingale. Now, sometime after the Ramseys moved to Atlanta, Glenn quit his job and he moved the family near the Ramseys in Atlanta. And Doug went to this school here, Holy Innocents Episcopal School. And Burke Ramsey went to the Lovett School Now the Stines and the Ramseys were good friends, and they vacationed together. And the Stines even went up to the Ramseys' Michigan house and stayed up there. That's where this photograph was taken. The Stines agreed to drive up from Atlanta with Burke, who had been staying with them while we were in Maryland. Best to keep him focused and in school, we had thought, despite our unknown future. He was really comfortable with the Stines because we had lived with them for so long after JonBenet's death. Now, for some reason, Susan Stine was always trying to protect Patsy, and she was searching the internet and on web pages, writing stuff, and she went so far as to make up a fake email account and pretend to be Boulder Police Chief Beckner. Police put halt to fake Ramsey emails. Police said Tuesday that Susan Stine sent emails from Beckner PD at hotmail.com to people affiliated with the investigation into the unsolved 1996 slaying of 6-year-old JonBenet. Here's one of the emails that Susan Stine sent. Subject: great articles. Charlie, just want you to know I thought those 2 articles you wrote today were excellent. You got everything right, as you always do. Thanks for all your support. Eventually, we'll be proven right. Regards, Mark. Now, Charlie Brennan was a reporter for the Rocky Mountain News, and he wrote this article, Expert Unsure What Killed JonBenet. And so this might have been the article that Susan Stine was referring to. So if you think you can get away with writing an email like Susan did, here's what happened. A search warrant was obtained and executed for Earthlink in Georgia. According to Earthlink's records, the account holder that had been accessing the Beckner Hotmail email account is Susan B. Stine at 5760 Long Grove Drive in Atlanta. Susan Stine is known as a close friend of John and Patsy Ramsey and has been interviewed as a witness in reference to the Ramsey investigation. And then here's a look at 5760 Long Grove in Atlanta. Well, this ends this episode of Unsolved. And do you feel that the Stines went overboard on trying to protect Patsy and John and Burke? Was there more to it?